All right, welcome back to the Raw Time Champ podcast. We're here to talk about Sooner State, subdivision rule changes, maybe, and our plans for next year. So, Matt, tell us about this match.
Yeah, Sooner State Showdown was held out in Tulsa, Oklahoma. If you don't know where it was, it's over at the United States Shooting Academy, which is where Area 4 used to be held at. Hopefully, it'll be held there again in the future. Match director Adam Roper pretty much designed just about all the stages in conjunction with Chad Stanton. And overall, the match was actually a really good balance of different skills. We actually had a couple of standards. Like one of the stages was uh, almost exclusively prone. Unfortunately, it got tossed because all the squads except one was shooting. Well, started loaded. The other one, the other squad was unloaded, and unfortunately, because one squad didn't follow what the changes was, it got tossed. But that's all right.
So, hold on. The whole stage was prone? I'm gonna
Pretty
need more.
much, like
I'm gonna need
there
more
was
details about that. That sounds interesting.
4 targets, 2 shots each. One of the
And did you
targets
get?
you could pretty much shoot while you were standing, but the other 3 you had to shoot prone.
So it was pretty much one position.
Pretty much, yeah. So like
Oh, okay.
you had pretty much a 4 by 5 by 5 foot 5.5 foot box that you were in. And so you were supposed to start loaded, holstered, and there was one target off to the side of a 6 foot wall. The other 3 were actually behind, and you had to go prone for the rest of those, or any way that you could shoot underneath a wall. Me being a bigger guy, because I'm over 6 feet, I had to go prone
Okay.
in order to make that comfortable for me.
That seems totally reasonable. When you said the whole stage was prone, I was imagining army crawling under barbed wire or something.
Yeah. But I mean, like with reference to crawl, that we actually had one field course that had a Cooper tunnel. It was like, okay, you know what? This is a pretty welcome challenge,
That's cool.
unless maybe you're a low cap division, because by the rules you cannot reload while in a Cooper tunnel.
Is that a rule?
Yeah, so
Wow.
otherwise it's a DQable offense.
I didn't know that.
We had another standard stage that was similar to like an El Prez: start facing up range, turn, draw, shoot, 2-2-2, reload, and then we went strong hand only, 2-2-2.
Cool.
And then everything else was more or less a generic field course, but there were some different kinds of conditions. So like one of them was unloaded on table, but you could only reload from the table. You could not stick any of your mags on the belt.
Okay.
So it definitely played into changing a little bit of plans depending on which capacity you were at.
Oh, cool.
Otherwise, fairly vanilla for what Oklahoma is known for, but it still tested a variety of skills. It didn't go crazy on it, but it's still like, hey, this is a pretty good match. It's spaced out well, but granted, there was also only 5 full squads, just because they didn't want to advertise it too much. And traditionally, what's been happening for this year and the past 2 years is dedicated ROs per squad.
Oh wait, so was this a major match?
It's listed as a level 2, yeah.
And there were only 5 squads total?
They didn't want to advertise it too much, get it out of control, and I think it's also because they knew they weren't necessarily going to get all the ROs that they want.
How many stages?
11.
Wow, that is.
11.
I mean,
11
it sounds like it went well.
The two short courses were doubled up on a pay.
I mean, it sounds like the match went well. That's a super weird match configuration, though, right? Like half the number of squads as number of stages.
And I think it's because they predicted there wasn't going to be as much RO help.
Yeah. Was this the first year they've held this match? I hadn't heard of it before, but
I
might just
no. I mean, there's been previous years when Chad was the section coordinator.
Oh, okay. So it's a new section coordinator.
So this section coordinator is the same as last year, Adam Roper.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, nice.
Last year set up a pretty good match, and I said, hey, invite everyone else that I can. and I happen to get some of our Austin buddies in there.
That's cool.
But I mean, like, second year in a row that he's been MD for this, solid match.
That's awesome. Well, hopefully it grows and they can get as many squads as they want, at least.
But I mean, like, considering the fact that they filled up all the squads that they wanted to, pretty good.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, so there was something else interesting about this match, I heard.
Yes. So we actually had a shoot off the following day, which, if you don't know what a shoot off is, typically it's just a bunch of steel lined up. Maybe you'll have a couple positions that you go to, and then usually you have to toss in a mandatory reload before the final popper. Doesn't matter if it's in the middle of the array or if you decide to reload it right before the last popper, it just needs to be done. So basically, they just set up tournament bracket style. They didn't do some like order of finish kind of thing. It was just, hey, once you get here, we're going to throw you into the bracket, and where you end up is where you end up. And basically, it all trickled down. Everyone was fighting. Whoever won, and it's just whoever's in first place wins $1,000.
Wow, that's cool.
Yep. Which
was it?
Funny,
was it separated by? It wasn't separated by division then.
No separation by division. Oh, and pistol only. No PCC. Just pistols only. Wherever you get lined up in there, you get lined up.
So I'm assuming someone shooting an open gun won.
No, it was actually, in fact, MD Adam Roper shooting a limited optics gun.
Oh, well, so that's an open gun. Okay. No.
Let's be honest. I did end up making the joke to him. It's like, hey, you got MD advantage, bro.
Well, yeah.
But,
I should have said someone shooting a 2011 with an optic on it would win, right?
let me be completely fair here. There was definitely a lot of opportunity for anybody to win. Like I won my first 2 rounds, and then I totally screwed up on my third going against a C-class shooter. I totally missed my reload.
Oh yeah, that happens. So did you shoot open or carry optics?
I shot carry optics at the match.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I just decided, hey, I've got a lot more carry optics ammo. I'm gonna just use that for the rest of the year.
Yeah, for sure. Well, cool, man. I'm glad you had fun.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm really hoping, like, let's just say you're a smaller match, maybe the Arkansas section, or if someone just decides to toss a smaller level 2 in Texas or possibly in Louisiana. If there could be a showdown like after the match ends, because the main match actually only went from 9 to about 2. That's fast for level 2. Granted, it's fewer people. If there can be a shoot off at the end of the match, that way when they're doing stats during the arbitration period, that would be great. That way there's something to fight for, and it just keeps everything excited going on. Everyone goes home Sunday.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds good.
I actually really hope this happens more. I know, what's his name? Jim Krantz down over in Louisiana, like a couple of times has tossed a shoot off at the end of a local match, and everyone was just simply there to have fun. I hope this happens more.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That sounds fun.
Because it's a completely different match pressure, because you're
I believe it.
You're more or less racing against yourself. Like,
well, and there's someone shooting right next to you.
So yeah, like, so you hear more pow pow and ting ting on the steel plates, and it's like,
well, yeah, and also
I need to hurry up.
Yeah, it's like it's more direct, I guess.
Yeah. Like,
whereas if you're shooting a stage, sometimes it's hard to gauge, like, oh, did I do that faster than someone else or not, until you like see your time. But if you're like shooting it with them at the exact same time, it's very clear who's going faster.
Like, dude, let me tell you, like, the first round that I shot and won, like, I checked my pulse after that. My heart was beating so damn fast. I was like, am I going in cardiac arrest?
That's cool. Yeah, that does sound fun. That's exciting.
But yeah, Adam Roper, great match. I hope more people come out.
Cool. Well, I'm glad it went well, and I'm glad you and everybody else had a good time. I think next up on the agenda we have rule changes, because it hasn't been long enough since the last one, I guess. But so I'm assuming everyone got this email, but there was the survey that USPSA did for production division capacity. And I guess if you haven't heard, they did this survey to gauge interest, and they're considering changing it from the existing limit, which most people know is at 10, and they're considering moving it up to 15. And that if that happens, it would be in effect at the beginning of 2024. So the survey has not closed yet. I don't think we know any.
This recording.
Well, yeah, as of us recording this, I don't remember when it closes, but it's closing pretty quick. So if you, most of you have probably already voted if you care. But
they probably also have a life membership too.
well, and I don't think anybody, at least that I'm aware of, we don't know the results of the survey. Hopefully they'll actually publish the results, but I know in the previous surveys they've done, they do not. So hopefully we'll see the results of the survey. If anyone's, I know a lot of people have said things like they should just move the capacity to however much you can fit in a standard magazine, or they should make the capacity the same as carry optics, which is 140 millimeter extendos. Whatever you think about that, I think neither of those options are on the table right now. So correct me if I'm wrong. I think the only options that are currently being considered are doing nothing or increasing it to 15, as best I understand it. So yeah, so I guess now that I think that's all the facts that need to be laid out, and now we can get into our opinions on the matter. So what do you think, Matt?
I want to hear.
I can go first. So if you don't know, I've been shooting, carry optics more recently, but I have a lot more experience and started out in production. And production's probably, if I had to pick one, still my favorite division. I also think I'm probably one of the minority who likes the 10 round limit. I just enjoy that. I understand why a lot of people don't like it, and I also, obviously, being a production shooter, understand the frustrations with a lot of more modern stages, I guess you could call them. Sometimes the 10 rounds is super annoying, especially if it's at a club match where stages may or may not technically be legal sometimes, being a level 1 match. So sometimes it's really annoying, and I get it. But I think, well, in the way I answered the survey is I would prefer it stay at 10 rounds personally. However, if they and I think they probably will change it to 15. If and when they change it to 15, I'm also not going to whine too much about it. I think 15 is a pretty good compromise. I think it still retains a lot of the cool attributes of the division, while also maybe enticing some of the less like hardcore production guys into shooting it, which for being real, that would be a really good thing, because all of us production guys know that we're usually shooting by ourselves at most club matches. So if it helps more people shoot production, then that's a definite win in my book. Even if it won't be my favorite change, I also won't hate it. So that's pretty much my thoughts on the matter, Matt. What do you got?
I mean, I agree with those. I see a lot more people at the local match these days buying more like ready to go production type guns, like like the Canic steel frame, that kind of thing, or they'll jump immediately into like a Shadow 2, and then they happen to buy extensions. But like considering how the way most stages have been going, right, just happens to be where it's more beneficial to have 10 rounds, and you only get 10 rounds per one of these. I think it'll alleviate some of the barrier to entry, especially since you don't necessarily have to buy more mags, which is kind of nice. If you want, at that point, all you really do is just buy base pads that fit within the production box. I guess, however, the main downside is now we're gonna have to start shifting around maybe a little bit of stage design, and then also classifier scores if you care so much about that. And then where do we necessarily fit 15 rounds? Do we fit it more into a high cap or a low cap type of division? Like what's your take on that?
I don't know. I think 10 rounds, pretty much everyone would agree that falls under their definition of low cap.
I mean, that's natural.
15 rounds is medium 10. Cap, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. Do we really need a designation for it? It's like if it's somewhere in between, it doesn't necessarily matter, I guess. But Yeah, the classifier thing isn't a definite issue. I know they're kind of usually pretty slow, or just they don't update them at all. So that
Because
can
I
be
mean, like
frustrating.
let's look at the 21 and the 22 series classifier. 22? No, 20. Like all of them are definitely going to be a lot slower with 10 round mags. Imagine how much faster it's going to be when you only have to do one reload or no reload with a 15.
Yeah. Well, and there's some older ones that I couldn't name them off the top of my head, but there's some older ones that didn't technically require a reload, but due to production being 10 rounds, it inherently required a reload, but not explicitly, I guess, if that makes sense. So
Well, it's
if
a
they
lot of the
change it,
yeah.
yeah, and so if I remember correctly, a lot of them were, well, there's not a lot of them, but of the few, if I remember right, I think they were 12 round stages or 16 round stages, where it was like eight. You typically would do 6 and 6 or 8 and 8. But like if you were shooting limited, you wouldn't have to do the reload. So now all the old production scores were shot. All the data was shot where it inherently required a reload. And now, if we move it to 15, 12 round stage, or a 16 round stage, if you did 15 plus 1, neither of those would require a reload, which is definitely gonna. I mean, you can shave like a second on the low end off your time just like by doing nothing. So that makes a pretty big difference.
Here's another question. Let's just say you shoot a classifier in a restricted state, like let's just say New York, because they got stuff like Staten Island, which is held in Long Island, New York.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would you prorate would you change the program in like the USPSA website or whatever to like prorate the classifiers for restricted states?
I had never even considered that. That's an interesting question. I'd have to think about that
Because
more,
they're
but
restricted to 10 rounds only.
yeah, and so I'd have to think about that more, but my initial just gut knee-jerk reaction is that no, the classifiers should be the same high hit factors regardless of like location. But that does pose an interesting problem that I hadn't considered before. So I don't really know the answer to that, but I think my gut says I wouldn't want to make like multiple high hit factors based on like state law.
I mean, I'm not trying to draw necessarily this and like limited 10.
Yeah. Maybe just, I don't know, this is kind of snowballing off topic, but maybe you would say like you'd have some list of classifiers that were like, we don't recommend you run these in capacity limited states because you're going to be hosed on them. Like if some like you can run them if you want, but your scores are going to not be it's going to be a lot harder to score well versus states that have unlimited capacity.
Okay, yeah, I get that sentiment.
But I don't know. That's an interesting question I hadn't thought of. I think I do, and I hadn't thought of this until you mentioned it either. I do like that there's actually less of an equipment requirement with 15 because you could. I mean, like right now, I have 5 pouches on my belt, and I usually when I'm shooting production, I usually walk up to the line on typical field course with 5 pouches on my belt, and I use the back one. I load the back one to 11 and start with that magazine. So while I'm running the stage, I have 5 total mags.
Yeah, because I mean, like let's just say this, right? Let's just take a double alpha pouch for example, right? It's give or take $50-$60. Now each one of these mags without a base pad is another $25. That would save you about $75 per magazine and pouch.
Yeah, and so even being like a USPSA nerd, I'm thinking if production were 15 rounds, I'm not sure if I would ever bother taking more than 3 mags up there. I mean, maybe I'd take 4 on rare occasions, but like I don't know. It's weird. I'd have to think about stages that I've shot and how I would have done them differently if I had 50% more ammo in every mag. But like I think that's a substantially lower equipment requirement, which in my opinion is a good thing. Making people buy more crap is bad as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, like also the way that companies have been selling guns, like it's actually kind of nice because most of them sell you 3 mags with the gun. Like Shadow
That's
2,
being common, yeah.
Walters, Canics, they give you 3 max to kick off.
Yeah. So from that aspect, I do like it. I still think, considering everything, I prefer 10 rounds, but again, I'm not gonna cry if they change it to 15. And there's definitely some advantages. One thing though, I think we haven't mentioned this yet. I think a lot of people that don't shoot production assume that the low cap aspect of production just means you're doing a lot of reloads, and like, why are you so attached to doing reloads, or who wants to do that many reloads? When anyone who's shot production extensively, I think would agree with this. They'll say that, well, the interesting part isn't just physically slamming more reloads. The interesting part is the risk that it adds to the stage. And shooting production is a big game of managing risk. Oftentimes you're shooting the gun to 8, 9, 10, or even 11 rounds, where you have very few makeup shots, whereas most of the other, like the high cap divisions, when I shoot carry optics, I feel like I have unlimited ammo all the time. It's rare that I don't have 5+ makeup shots to just do what I want with. So in production, that's almost never the case. Oftentimes you have no makeup shots and you're shooting at steel or things like that. So managing the risk is a unique aspect of production that I don't think is present, at least not to that extent, in most other divisions.
It's
Maybe
also like another thing that's also nice about, like, let's just say you ship between carry optics and production, or even open production, something like that. It's nice when you're able to prove to yourself that, like, hey, here's a different execution style, I guess, or a different equipment rules, and I can still perform really well despite having a different gun or different equipment.
Yeah, and I think it's a different flavor. It's a little bit different of a skill, because I mean, managing risk is a thing in USPSA across the board, but it's like uniquely emphasized in production. I mean, maybe you could argue single stack and revolver, but those divisions are unfortunately even more dead than production is anymore, so they hardly count. Sorry if you shoot those divisions, guys, but so I think it's a pretty unique challenge, and it's I think that's, if I had to boil it down to one reason, that's the reason I lean towards not changing it to 15, is I think you get rid of, or maybe just dilute, that unique challenge, that no longer exists if we change it to 15. Maybe a little bit, but not nearly as much.
It's also really nice when you can just buy a 500 gun and just go to town.
Yep. Oh yeah. That'll still, well, I mean, I feel like they've kind of ruined that with some other changes, or at least ruined the perception of that with some other changes. But at least that aspect will be unchanged regardless of what they do with the capacity.
Yep.
You can buy a stock whatever, and you're not gun limited in production.
All right.
But so so I guess that pretty much sums that up. So that's an interesting topic. I think people like to talk about the rule changes. So if you're actually still listening, let us know what you think in the YouTube comments, or on the Instagram, or whatever. Yeah. And also, I want to know what you think, and do you actually shoot production regularly? So I'll add this at the end. This is my last thing on this topic. I wonder if a lot of the people responding to the survey will say, yes, we want 15 rounds. No, I never shoot production. Which in a way, I will say, is, as a production shooter, those the people that vote but don't actually shoot production, it's a little frustrating, because like, I don't vote on limited division changes. But then on the other hand, I do kind of get it. Those opinions are actually valid, because maybe there are some people who are saying, well, I don't shoot production, but if it were 15, I'd actually shoot some matches in production. So if you're one of those people, I get it. But so if you want to share your opinion with us, let us know what you think, and do you actually shoot production or not, and would that change if this rule change happened? All right, so assuming you don't have anything else on this, Matt.
I don't. Honestly,
Okay.
I don't. Just because, like, yeah, I don't shoot production all that often, but I still enjoy
You have, though.
as a different. I enjoy it as a different challenge.
Yeah. So anyways, I think both of me and Matt and Calvin and Coy aren't here tonight, but we'd all be interested in your opinion. So if you listen this far, let us know. And yeah, so I think our final topic for the night was I'm sure all 4 or 5 of you that listen to us have been wondering where we've been, what we're doing, and what we're planning on doing. So we've all been really busy. I think Coy is doing something with pickles. I don't know. I got married, so that was really fun. Calvin was out of the country for a while. And Matt has been. What have you been doing, Matt? You've been shooting though.
I've been shooting and slowly dying, possibly.
Aren't we all? But so yeah, so I think I know for me, I'm really making an effort to get back into it. I've been out of it for maybe 6 months or so now, and I'm missing it. So I want to get back to training, get back to competing seriously, not just showing up to local matches to hang out with my friends. And that'll be starting hopefully now, and then continuing through the winter down here in Texas. We can shoot for most of the winter pretty easily. So I think I've kind of taken a off season on accident for the last few months, so I'm gonna not take an off season over the winter.
You've honestly taken an off a year, and honestly, considering what you're doing lately, good for you.
I think other things have been happening, but I still have my love for shooting, rest assured. But yeah, so I think that's my plan.
Does this mean you're going to be working on the Blazer less?
No, well, that's the other thing. Not that anyone cares. I've been working on my house. My wife and I are doing some home remodeling, so that's been a pain. And not only is that keeping me from shooting, it's keeping me from working on the stinking car. So I'm ready to work on the car, and I'm ready to shoot some. So, but yeah, so that's my plan. And I think okay. So then, well, first of all, Matt, let's hear your shooting related plans for the next however long.
Yeah. For the time being, I'm just going to keep on shooting a production type division, whether it's prod, carry optics. I'm not going to full dive into open just yet. Still working out some gremlins. And then let's see, shooting events. February, I'm still planning on going to Puerto Rico for the Caribbean Open.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so eventually we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And then the beginning of November, I am taking a 1-day mental management course from Steve Anderson.
Cool. I really can't wait to hear that is.
But yeah, that should be interesting. It's been a year and a half since I took the JJ course with Calvin. So yeah, it'll be a different instructor, so it'll be a nice change of pace.
Cool. Well, I hope it goes really well. Yeah, so on that related note, what are we going to be doing with the podcast going forward? So, believe it or not,
hopefully
we are still trying to make the podcast. But I know with everybody's very busy lately, so I think going forward, we're going to try to have at least part of us recording on some regular schedule. We're not maybe once a month or maybe twice a month. And then even if only 2 of us to get together like tonight, we're still going to do it. And hopefully we can have all 4 of us as often as possible. But previously we've been kind of like, if not all of us could make it, we'd kind of just bail for that time. And that ends up, when you have 4 people with busy schedules, you end up canceling a lot of recordings. So going forward, we're going to try to make more of a commitment to actually recording, even if not all of us are here. And I think Matt, and I agree with this, expressed some interest in inviting some guests. So we'll see if anyone's interested in wasting their time with us for 30 minutes or so, and hopefully have some interesting discussion for the few of you that listen. But yeah, so if you guys have any ideas on what you think would be fun to listen to, let us know. Or if you like our idea, then let us know, because we're not totally sure. But yeah,
and if you are a guest, please try to come with a topic, because sometimes we're just completely out or don't know how to answer something.
Yeah, I'm not a very interesting person, so. But yeah, I think that's all we got. You got anything else, Matt?
Nope, got nothing else.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Stay tuned for more. We promise we will be back.
Yay.
Hold on, I accidentally almost ended the call again.